Thank you for having me. I just accidentally found Bitcoin, which I feel like pretty much most of my career has just been a complete accident. When I first applied for a job out of college, I was responding to physical newspaper ads, right? It was sitting at my kitchen table with the Houston Chronicle, with the classified section open, with pen, circling the ads, and then putting resumes in, beautiful envelopes and putting them in the mail. And I don't know, I feel lucky that I got a job working for Solomon Brothers. It was actually Fibro Energy was the commodities trading desk for Solomon Brothers, and went to work originally on the heavy fuels desk as a risk manager. Anyway, long story short, ended up becoming a natural gas trader. And when I found Bitcoin, I realized there was this connection that many people were not seeing to the energy sector. And we can go into this maybe a little bit more, but Bitcoin mining is to an energy company like an Excel spreadsheet is to an accounting firm, right? It just is part of the operation now, or it should be part of the operation. It's this tool that you can't not use now that it's here, right? Accounting firms went from pen and paper to everything by hand to using calculators, and then they progressed to computer programs, and then that became Excel, right? Those are tools that they use, and the energy companies are now beginning to understand that Bitcoin can be accretive to their business models. They don't have to love Bitcoin, although I would say after the conversations in Nashville last week, when you had two presidential candidates talk about putting Bitcoin in strategic reserve for the United States, I would say that all of the argument against Bitcoin for money launderers or terrorists, or we can just park that, right? That narrative is dead. So anyway, moving forward, I don't anticipate that's much of a conversation with any company, much less the energy companies, as they begin to understand that not only is Bitcoin a good idea for their balance sheet, it's also vital to our national security.
Yeah, that's all coming out now, all right. Yeah, definitely. And governments really need to start looking at this. Yeah, not only your government, governments in Europe and around the world. And I think there probably is a little bit of work being done behind the scenes, yeah, by some governments. The first governments that get there, the first countries that get there are going to be the winners. And that's just the way it is because there just ain't enough Bitcoin to go around for everybody. So hopefully Ireland could be one of them as well, but we'll see. America is heading that way anyway. Yeah. Um, definitely. Definitely. So let's talk a little bit more about what happened at the conference and what people were saying over there. So regarding RFK, he had an amazing speech as well. We start off with him. Yeah. And he was saying about he'd like to buy a bit more Bitcoin, something like he's throwing out a few numbers there. Yeah.
I think RFK is incredible. We were just waiting with bated breath for both of those speeches, right? RFK and Trump. um, and I think maybe it could be safe to say that RFK spent a little more time digging into what Bitcoin is and why it's important to our country. I heard that there was some behind the scenes conversation about what the number he would say. What number would it be? 1 million? Would it be 2 million? What would be his recommendation for the U.S.? What size position should the U.S. have in Bitcoin? And I have it on really good authority that that he was working with some folks on his remarks, and that the number that was given to him to put in his remarks was, or suggested to him, was 1 million Bitcoin. And when obviously he went on stage, he said 4 million Bitcoin. That to me is a really clear indicator that he understands Bitcoin, right? It to him, it isn't an allocation. It isn't a financial asset, right? If you have the opinion that I want a huge position in Bitcoin, you understand that anything other than an enormous position of Bitcoin isn't, it doesn't represent the ideals of the United States or any free democracy for that matter, right? Only someone who is deeply committed to liberty, freedom, private property rights, democracy, wealth, energy, abundance, uh, human rights, only that type of a leader gets on stage and makes the statement that we're going to own all the Bitcoin, because owning all of the Bitcoin, will help any person or any society propagate those ideas that our Constitution is based upon. So, I'm a huge admirer, longtime admirer of his work. I think he's the only one qualified to dismantle the current three-letter agencies. I think that there is so much rot sitting in our country inside of those agencies, and they just need to be, dismantled.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
To use
And it's the
non.
same around the world as well. It's the same around the world in different countries. There is a lot of rot in behind the scenes, and people are starting to become more aware of it now. Maybe people like you and me have seen it for a long time before this, and we could see what was really going on. Yeah. But I think other people now are starting to realize what's really going on. Yeah. And for the individual themselves, you know, sometimes we can't wait on our policymakers maybe to try and protect us, yeah, and help us. So people need to really learn about this themselves as well as the individual and for their own families. I think, anyway, myself.
Well, but they can't. I think that's an interesting statement that you made. They can't protect us if they continue to burden us.
Mhm.
Right? Those things they are not aligned. Someone cannot protect me by giving me $1,000 today when that $1,000 is worth more today, worth less today, or worth less in a year, or worth less than in 5 years. Right? That doesn't make sense. The that's not protection, right? And Bitcoin is the ultimate form of um, protection because it's unalterable. No one can take it from us. So, I'm obviously very bullish on Bitcoin, the network. Um, I'm very bullish on the price of Bitcoin. But I'm bullish on uh, the propagation of freedom and free speech around the world that Bitcoin brings. I think at the root, Bitcoin is language, right? And I think often of how hard it is to communicate with people that speak other languages. So when I travel a lot, I'm sure you travel a lot, but you go to different countries and you have these, obviously you have a language barrier and you have a money barrier. There's so much friction in our communication. But if we all speak the language of Bitcoin, it removes all of the friction in that communication. And so to me, Bitcoin is this language that allows me to communicate with the other 7 plus almost 8 billion people that are on Earth. It gives everyone's voice an equal weighting. Everyone that speaks the language of Bitcoin has an equal weighting to another. And I think that's what gets me up every day and keeps me excited um, about working in Bitcoin, talking about Bitcoin, helping other people touch Bitcoin. And that's what you do too.
Yeah, yeah. The community is really amazing, isn't it? And the people that you meet around the world, and when you go to conferences, you were in Madeira, weren't you? Ella was in Madeira as well. There was a good gang from the state that came over. Uh, uh, I think we passed a few times when we were there, but we didn't actually talk. But that event was really, really amazing as well. Like, yeah, in Madeira, yeah. How did you find that yourself, the Madeira event?
We thought it was incredible. I mean, in fact, I'm going to a few other, kind of off the beaten path conferences next month, and then I think for like the next 3 months. And I'm really looking forward to them because they become this really intimate gathering of thinkers, right? Nobody's there trying to get attention. No one's it's not a place where there's discussion about the altcoins or the controversy surrounding all of that. Those are really those are places where deep thinkers come to share their ideas. And so to me, I just sat in awe listening to every panel, thinking, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that there's 500 people here or whatever it was. I'm not sure how many people it was, but um, I'm bearing witness to these conversations, like just such a historic moment in time. I would really encourage people to seek out some of these smaller conferences and go. In the United States, I mean, that's the same sort of energy that BitBlock Boom that Gary Leland puts on. I'll be going to Riga next month to the Honey Badger. I hope I'm going to Slovenia the month after that. I think I'll be going to Africa, in November. So just it's such a cool moment in time
Really,
around the world.
yeah, truly, truly is. Yeah, and it's one thing. I say, like, say, talking to different people in your local area about Bitcoin. But when you go to these other conferences, and you hit the nail on the head there, the smaller conferences are so much more intimate. Yeah. I think there was about maybe 3,000, 2.5, 3,000 people in Madeira, but it was an amazing event. Yeah. You get to really talk to people and meet people one on one, really, don't you? Compared to now, I know Nashville was amazing and it was huge. Yeah. But it's probably too big. Yeah.
No, it was perfect. It was perfect. That's a totally different energy.
Yeah.
Um, they did an incredible job. I mean, every touch point of Nashville was really special. Obviously there was a ton of security and all that, but it felt intimate. It felt intimate to me, even though there were 20,000 people there. I never felt like it was overly crowded, or I was, you know, wanting for anything. There were lots of Nashville is an incredible place to host an event, but there were lots of places to sort of, hide away and have those really small, intimate gatherings and conversations with people. And I don't know, I walked up to a bunch of people that I had not met before, and I think anytime you get Bitcoiners together, good things come. So I want to come to your conference, though. Tell us about your conference.
Oh, well, the Irish conference we started in 2022. It's the third year now that we've had it. We've rebooked the venue again for next year. It's been growing every year. It's been like grown by 50% at least every year, year on year. And we had a great line of speakers. One of the times we had Greg Foss at it, actually. Greg was amazing. He zoomed in from, I think, Miami. Actually, he zoomed in from Miami when Miami was on, and he got the crowd going. And we had somebody from the Bitcoin Advisor, Peter from the Bitcoin Advisor this year had it. He zoomed in. So we have a lot of live speakers, and we're just growing it, and we're just sharing what we've learned. And it's all about educating people, because Bitcoin has changed my life, yeah, for the better in so many ways. And I just think people need to learn about it and use it to protect themselves from what's coming down the road. you know? Uh, what can you see coming down the road with different things that are happening out there, global events that are happening? Yeah. Why should people be buying and learning about Bitcoin for themselves? Like for maybe the newer people, someone that might catch this podcast. Yeah.
It's I think it depends on what lens you view the world from. So I have the opportunity to speak a lot about Bitcoin to different groups of people. And, if I go talk to the energy companies, like we had touched on earlier, I try to help them understand how Bitcoin mining can be a useful tool for them, how it's accretive. And I give this example a lot, but if you're a power generation company, right? You're a company and you've gone into the capital markets and you've raised money or you've borrowed money, and you've built a huge natural gas plant, and that plant feeds into a grid, and that grid provides electricity to all businesses and people in a region. You, as the generation company, want to make sure that you're able to capture every dollar that you can for your effort, right? Those guys have taken on the risk in the capital markets to build those facilities. There's no burden to a ratepayer or a taxpayer. And so when you explain to them that you no longer have to pay to have excess power taken, which, believe it or not, they do, or they shut down facilities, right? When the demand isn't there. Most of the time, they keep the plants running, but they essentially have to pay into the system so that the system will rebalance around their load. You don't have to do that anymore. You can now mine Bitcoin off that excess power, and there are ways for you to do a joint venture with a mining company or do it yourself. And the flexibility that Bitcoin mining brings, in the right, they could be carving a deal where they only sold a Bitcoin miner power 5% of the time, and it would still be a good deal for both companies. It's my thesis that all energy finds its way to Bitcoin mining, and the energy spectrum really reprices. And I think, in the long term, prices come down for consumers because of all the new power opportunities and energy opportunities that will come through Bitcoin mining. So I might use that lens, but if I'm speaking to a women's group, I might share a story of a woman who was sex trafficked in in China or in some other country, and used Bitcoin in order to buy her way to freedom, right? And there's an actual story that I tell, and give the real example of what happened. But just what's easy for people to, I think, envision in their minds, kind of along that same thread, is Bitcoin is the only way. Holding 100% or holding some portion of your wealth in Bitcoin is the only way that you can cross a border. It's the only way you can walk out of Ukraine to a different country with all of your wealth, is if you store all of your wealth in Bitcoin, right? You don't need a hardware device with you. You can just memorize your 12 words or your 24 words. Now, I realize that to some people sounds like I'm never going to memorize 12 words or I'm never going to memorize 24 words. But I would just say to you, you absolutely could, right? The Lord's Prayer is actually more words than that. There are a lot of things that we've memorized through our lives that are important to us. So, just helping people find the right door with which to enter Bitcoin is where I feel like that's what you have to be good at. You have to be good at identifying the door and then helping them walk through that door. So it just depends on who your audience is. And I will say that the great thing about conferences, and to give you kudos again, really to show my respect for you, is what you're doing is you're giving people a place to self-select, and so I don't go out into Houston and just say, oh, come on, let me talk to you about Bitcoin. Right. But I do show up at Bitcoin events in Houston because the people that show up are genuinely curious, and those people have self-selected. They're telling you, by them being there, they're saying to you, I want to know more. So it's, anyway, sorry to ramble there for a second.
No, it's a great point. It is a great point. Yeah. Yeah. It's very, very important. And what you said there, but Bitcoin has different uh, traits for different people. Yeah, some people might come for a number go up. Some people might come for protection. Some people are seeing it as a flight to safety now. Yeah, yeah. People that are maybe in more looking at global macroeconomics and what's going on around the world. Yeah, the world is a bit rocky if you know really what's going on. Yeah, so it can protect you in a lot of different ways. Yeah, it just depends on who you are, whether you're an individual, you're a family, you're a corporation, you're a government. That's why Bitcoin's for everybody. It can help
And
everybody.
I think why I gravitate so strongly to Bitcoin is because I feel like you don't have to know anything about what's going on in the world. You don't need to know anything about what's going on, in the financial shenanigan markets. You don't need to have an MBA or be a CFA or be a CPA or be, you don't need to have any string of letters after your name. Bitcoin is for everyone. All you need to know is that scarcity drives value, and all money eventually converges to one. The best money always wins. And so holding on to those principles, it's great it's, to me, the study of Bitcoin has been the most fascinating subject that I've ever studied. And you certainly then begin to examine other things that have, kind of landed somewhere in your brain. Like, I feel like I have all these data pieces in my brain that I'm extracting, like all this falseness that has been implanted through time and, through college classes and the mainstream mafia. Um, it's like this deprogramming, but it really lets you focus on things that are just important to you. I love to plant dahlias. I'd much rather be planting dahlia tubers than almost doing anything else. And so, you don't need to watch CNBC or have a Robinhood account or know what Nvidia stock is doing. None of that matters, right? It just allows you to divorce yourself from this mania that happens in our society and just buy Bitcoin and hold it and go do happy things and focus on your family and your health and, be a good person, do good things for other folks.
Yeah. True, definitely true. Yeah, so as you say, Bitcoin's for everyone. You can uh depends what level you're at or what you want to do with your life or where your life is going. Yeah. It is truly amazing. It truly is amazing. Yeah. And we see in there as well some of the bigger players in the market in the Bitcoin conference, like say Cantor Fitzgerald were coming out. They're talking about what they're planning to do now with this new Bitcoin lending, which is huge. Yeah, and as they said, they openly said it. You know what I mean? They've got shed loads or something else loads of Bitcoin, and they do. Yeah. Van Eck is after coming out as well. It was the CEO Van Eck, yeah, that said he has about 30% of his net worth in Bitcoin. Yeah. There's a lot of like big financial people now starting to open up and start really talking about what they're doing and what's been going on. So I think it's positive for everything, yeah, and everyone, yeah, for the future.
Yeah, what's interesting is that people have been disclosing their Bitcoin holdings and people have been talking about Bitcoin. I mean, take Bill Miller. Bill Miller and Bill Miller's son. Bill Miller spoke. The son spoke this year at the conference. I met both of them last year in Miami at the conference. Like, they have been talking about Bitcoin for years. And I had dinner on Monday night with an advisor to a very large university foundation. And I said, wow, gosh, did you catch any of the conference? And I had sent snippets, and I had sent some of Bill Miller's comments, and then Bill Miller had tweeted. And, I knew that he respects Miller Value Fund and what those folks have done. And my friend said, oh, so much has changed since you got into Bitcoin. Wow, it's just, now it's like this mainstream thing. And I just kind of, I mean, we're good friends, and I just kind of started laughing, and I said, okay, but really, you've changed, because these guys have been saying this for years, right? The protocol hasn't changed. Your perception of it being accepted has changed. And it was like this funny moment. He was like, all right. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it to you, right? Like, now we have ETFs, and we have Larry Fink on TV using the word Bitcoin and using the word hope in the same sentence. Like, but really, Bitcoin hasn't changed. People have now shifted to see the light.
Yeah. As more people do their work on it, that's what happens. They start doing their own research and start looking at more content about Bitcoin, and looking at events and talking to other Bitcoiners. They start realizing that maybe we did cop onto something a little bit, maybe a few years before them. Yeah. So I think it's really down to the work. People do a little bit of homework on Bitcoin, start researching it, start looking at it, and they start really understanding then that it is the future, and it is our insurance. I think, yeah, I've seen it as my insurance now anyway, and some sort of protection.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said the words "the future," because, like we were mentioning before, like, you and I are not young. Right? I think I have a bunch of malware in my brain, and I've been programmed to have certain perceptions as to, how I can build, um, a protection account, right? A retirement account. It's really a protection account. Our kids don't view it that way at all. To our kids, it is just money. I have a 21-year-old, and she was at the big Bitcoin conference. She co-founded with Arshmalu an organization called the Bitcoin Students Network, and they partnered with the conference to bring students to Nashville. And the conference, David Bailey and his team gave away tickets to members of her organization. They had to go through an application process, but it's my understanding they applied. They gave a ticket to everybody that applied. They had 1,400 and I think 18 students that took the free ticket. And around 250 of those showed up for a pizza party on Thursday afternoon, a get together. Like, that to me is the future, because those kids aren't saving in any other, they look at retirement accounts in a completely different way. And they obviously are going to Bitcoin conferences, so they're drinking our Kool-Aid a little bit, but then there were like 5 or 6-year-old kids who definitely are not programmed by the mainstream mafia. I won't tell you who this is, but a big name at the conference had his kids there. He had his 2 little kids there, and they were like 5 and 6 years old. And they were selling little bracelets that they were making. And like they said, things on them. Like I bought one that said Free Ross, and there were anyway. And so I saw these kids, and there's a crowd around them, and they're selling their bracelets. And the little girl had on all these bracelets up her arm, and she was letting you choose the bracelets. And I said, these are incredible. How much are they? And she said, well, they're $3. And I said, amazing. Do you take Bitcoin? And she said, I only take Bitcoin. And so, I'm buying these bracelets from her, and I'm using my Cash App, and I'm sending her Bitcoin. It was great. And then I saw her dad later at a different event. And I said, oh my gosh, I mean, did she sell out? Does she have any more? How'd the sales go? And he said, oh, she's making them constantly. He said, at the hotel where we are, she's sitting out by the pool, and she has the box of all of the stuff to make the bracelets. And she's paying all the kids at the pool to make the bracelets. She's paying them $1. She's coming to the conference and selling them for $3. Like, those kids are winning.
Definitely.
And she's
Definitely.
only taking it in Bitcoin, right? Like, that is freaking brilliant. So for anybody who thinks they need to watch another Jerome Powell interest rate fiasco meeting on TV and sit here with bated breath, I'm telling you, there are better things to do with your time.
Yeah, yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. And with us as well, we have a little 2.5-year-old called Theo, and we bring him to Madeira. We brought him to Amsterdam in 2022 as well. We brought him to the event in Amsterdam, the Bitcoin event over there, and it's for the kids. If the kids can get their head around this and learn about money, like Theo goes around, and when someone gives him money, he's like saying Satoshis. You know what I mean? Because I'm teaching him to convert that into Satoshis. All his savings goes into Satoshis. That's all. So it's for the kids. Yeah. And if we can do things and make things better for the future for the kids. And I haven't really talked about this much publicly, but we're just changing. We've got 4 children. Yeah. 3 of them went through the whole system. Theo's going to be different. Yeah. We're coming out of the system this time. Yeah. He's not going into that whole system, and especially what's going on in the schools at the moment and everything, and how they're changing things in the schools and what they're teaching them in the schools. I don't know what's like in America, but in Ireland, there's some weird stuff going on. Yeah. So we're going to protect them from that. That's our job as parents to do that.
Well, and they're your kids, right?
Yeah.
They don't belong to the school. My daughter never went to school on time. We live in Houston, where it's just bloody hot, and we had family that had a place in a very small town in the Northeast, where it was like kind of living in a 1950s town. Everybody's house was unlocked, and everyone knew one another. Lots of just time outside, lots of sports. And I just refused to come back to Houston until after Labor Day, because that was kind of when everything would wrap up. So some years she'd be 2 weeks late to school, some years she'd be 3 weeks late to school, and there was nothing the school could do about it. And my friends and the other parents would say, oh, this is unfair to her. No one's going to be friends with her. All the friends are going to hook up, and she'll miss out, and she'll be so behind in schoolwork, and all this garbage. And I was like, okay, I don't think so, but okay. If your kid needs to go 2 weeks early so that they can learn where the bathroom is and how to line up to go to music class, like, sorry, but we're not doing that. She'll figure it out when she gets there. She was late to school every single year, and she graduated number 1 in her class.
Amazing.
So
amazing. Just goes to show, doesn't it? Just goes to show.
That again, it's that programming that you've got to do things in this specific order. And for us, I mean, I will say it was really just my fault. I didn't want to go back to Houston. It's too hot. I thought, gosh, she can sail a boat across this huge body of water, and she's 5 years old. She's in a boat by herself, in the middle of the Atlantic, essentially. Like, that is just better for her in every way than lining up to go to music class in some rigorous school, rigorous, right? Rigorous. I'm making fun. Um, like, we have to reject all those narratives. I talked about this at BitBlock Boom, for anybody that's interested. Rejecting the narrative that is the mainstream education. They are your kids. If you think that it's best for them to, participate, or in my case, to not participate, then do it. Spending. I've said that. I think kids need sunshine, time with their parents, and time by themselves to thrive. Right? They need to know that you love them unconditionally, and that you believe in them, and that they have the power to go do really cool things. And those really cool things don't need to be what other people think are really cool things. So good for you for
We're
rejecting
fine.
this.
Well, it's going to be an interesting journey, and I think it'll benefit him a lot more. I think. Anyway, he's learning about Bitcoin. He's going to learn about money. One of the first things that we're going to teach him. Yeah, and I think he'll be way ahead with all his satoshis than most kids in the future.
Well, I heard, do you know Morgan and Pierre Rashard? Pierre works for
No,
Riot, and Morgan is a financial advisor, but she really advises clients on, making allocations to Bitcoin. I think that's all of her clients basically are in Bitcoin. They have 3 little kids, and they've spoken at a bunch of events. But I saw them in Austin a few weeks ago, um, and she was saying they'll be at the grocery store with their little kids, and their kids will pick up a candy bar, or they'll pick up something, right? And Morgan will say, "No, this, we're not going to get this. This isn't good for us," or whatever. And the kids will look at the ingredient list and say, "Does this have an inflation ingredient in it?" Like, what a great way to put that. No, we're not eating that. That has an inflation ingredient.
amazing. But sure, why not? That's the thing. Why not? Why not teach our children these things? Yeah, because
Too.
it's going to benefit them more, I think, than standing there, being somewhere and stand there and being told to sit down and put your hand up on your mouth and, you know, asking, can you go to the toilet? And, you know, kids need to be out there. When we were younger, we were out there, we were climbing trees, we were doing all types of things. I go to restaurants now and I see like 1-year-olds and their parents give them a tablet and put it in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've looked into all this stuff and doing research on this. Theo is not allowed phones or tablets or anything like that. You know, we barely even watch the TV, to be honest, with him. When we're watching stuff in the evening, me and Laura, we watch educational stuff. We go onto YouTube and watch educational programs, documentaries. Yeah, but you see some parents and they're giving their kids these tablets. It's doing so much damage to their neurological systems. Yeah, and it's going to affect them over time.
Well,
But
they just need them. They just factually don't need them. Ella was the last kid in her class to get a phone when she was in school. And the only reason that she got one was because she made the varsity golf team and they traveled. And I wanted her to be able to call me while they were on the road. And so we got her a flip phone. But all of her friends had iPhones. She just never wanted one. Um, And people feel like, oh, again, oh, my kid's going to not have friends or my kid's going to miss out. Like, no, they're not. She never felt like she was missing out on anything at all. But again, we spent a ton of our time uh, outside at the public library, sailing, playing tennis, riding our bikes, gardening. Um, I don't know, just like living real life, doing real life things. That's what, in my opinion, that's if that's the goal of what we should be doing as an adult, right? Like I want to retire so I can go work in the garden. Then why is it that we line our kids up with all this other garbage throughout their lifetime and tell them that they've got to be masters of it? It just doesn't make sense, right? Like,
Probably because we've been conditioned to think that,
right,
or other
right.
people, and then we're pushing it onto our children by the powers that be, and we've been doing it for so long, and a lot of parents just don't. Well, they've been conditioned to think that's the way, but it's not the way. If you look back a few years ago, it wasn't the way. It's only that way now in the last maybe 20 years or so, which isn't a lot of time in the grand scheme of things.
Yep. No, it goes by in a blip. Goes by in a blip.
Yeah. Okay. Um, but yeah, so as I was saying, it's all about the kids. So tell us a little bit about yourself and the proof of work, uh, what
Yeah.
you've been
Yep.
doing there, and the Bitcoin Today collection coalition.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that and projects that you're working on that you're.
Thanks. The proof of workforce is really gaining some traction. You may have seen recently, we were out in Santa Monica. So proof of workforce aims to provide Bitcoin education for workers, so for unions. And we went before the city council in the city of Santa Monica maybe a month ago and got an approval for the first Bitcoin office in the United States. So we're a nonprofit. We provide education. We don't tell people to buy Bitcoin, but we offer, all sorts of ways for people to come in and learn about Bitcoin, to touch Bitcoin. And what Santa Monica, I think, will specifically benefit from is increased traffic to their city. It used to be a huge destination for people, and they've gotten a lot of negative press around the homeless and obviously California. We don't tell people to buy Bitcoin, but we offer, all sorts of ways for people to is facing some fairly significant challenges. The cities are facing significant challenges. And so we went in, we sat through an entire city council meeting, and I wrote down the number of times that I will say the city council meeting started at about 5:30 in the afternoon, and they voted on our initiative at 12:33 a.m. So we sat through, all these proposals and kind of the city updates. And the number of times that they said they were going to cut the budget or reduce or eliminate programs, et cetera, right? They are trying to meet an increasing need of their citizens with less and less dollars. And, this is kind of central to my thesis that Bitcoin is a critical piece of national security. You have to have strong economic base to be a nation that is secure, right? We have to have industries and businesses and travelers and all of these components that make up a strong economy. And so, I hope that the businesses that are in Santa Monica will, certainly start to accept Bitcoin, like cities all over the planet are. Lugano, certainly El Salvador, but Costa Rica. I mean, look at what Madeira did, right? I recently saw the statistics of the number of transactions, Bitcoin transactions, during that Madeira conference. It was incredible. So, I hope that Santa Monica will begin to see the benefits of that. But we've worked with, the Santa Monica firefighters hold Bitcoin in their treasury, Houston firefighters. There's several pensions. There's more on the way that will soon to be announced. So that's proof of workforce. Look us up if you get a chance. And the Bitcoin Today Coalition, I really just joined in May. They are, nonpartisan, again, providing education, but we're focused on really giving education to lawmakers. So we go into their offices, can meet with their teams, hand out educational material, and just be a resource. And again, a lot of really cool announcements coming. But we just published a book on national security, which maybe you can link to in your show notes. I'll send you the link. So yeah, it's a huge honor just to be listening to what people's perceptions are about Bitcoin, but seeing their perceptions change and seeing in real time how it's becoming important. Agenda items in cities, and certainly we had however many elected officials at the Nashville conference, right? 2 presidential candidates and 10 congressmen, senators. It's astonishing.
Really, really opening up now. And it's opening up around the world as well, all over the world. So what's next for you, Lisa? What was the plan for you? Yeah. Where are you going to put your energy for the next couple of months of this year?
Yeah, I'm putting my energy into the energy companies and spending a lot of time with the miners. There's a huge marriage happening between the two spaces, and so lot of opportunity for the energy companies to get more involved, start monetizing excess energy that they have. Um, yeah, like I said, I live here in Houston, the energy capital of the world, worked in the energy space for a really long time. So just trying to bring those two worlds together.
Good, very good. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you yourself? If they wanted to talk to you about energy and what you're doing?
Yeah, you can reach out to me. I have a website. It's lisahough.io. There's a link. I think you can book an appointment. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, send me a DM, reach out to me on Twitter, send me a DM. I'm better, I think, at getting back on LinkedIn than I am on Twitter. For some reason, I get so many scam bots on Twitter, but I do book meetings, so I always keep space on my calendar. If anybody wants to chat Bitcoin or energy or talk to me about what you're working on, I'd be glad to see if I can help in any way. It would be my pleasure.
Amazing. Okay. Thanks for your time, Lisa. And we will definitely catch up again. Yeah. And we will meet up in person again.
I
Yeah.
know.
At some
I
conference somewhere around the world, or maybe in Ireland.
look forward to that. I hope I get to come to your conference.
Thank you. Thank you.